We are going to have a public hearing first.
Right now,
5 minutes, what are you talking about?
well, we got down to
The city clerk, by the way. So you're going to just be, that's all you're doing is the crowd.
also want to talk about
Do you ever do the drug court?
The college and that stuff have their own.
Yeah, you should. It's, I think it's about every 2 weeks they had drug court yesterday.
yeah, their state's saying, county never really.
The judge looked at the guy.
The feds take care of the state, so.
To help yourself, you have a couple of years, you have done this. We're taking you out of this, you know, you have to go back, so you can go in there, they do this, they handcuff him right here in front of his mother. And he looks, he goes, you hear this, you did this, just puts his hands up and goes, say how much peace. So I thought that was the coolest thing to say. And then the mother got me to say something, he looked at her, he said, she goes, you've done nothing, you don't have, don't say anything. That's what's sticking sad. But he's only going to be in, I guess, over the weekend, and then in a secure treatment, which is still jail, but at least it's a treatment. But still, he was a teenager in his 70s. That was not drug era, really. But it was different. It was more family. Straight unit. Now it's the family's just gone. I never got somewhere conservative, but it's just gone downhill.
Yeah.
Mr. Blanchard, are you about ready?
Virginia's gonna win.
Good.
I'll tell you right now before it even starts.
On the national championship?
Oh, they're incredible. They'll win the national championship this year. They'll win.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the March 5th of 2019 City of Cortland Common Council meeting to order. If you all rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will not backtrack into our public hearing. We have a public hearing. We'll call the public hearing open. This is on a no parking zone on Tompkins Street. We are looking at west of the railroad tracks up to Abdallah.
Yes.
Abdallah.
Levydale.
Levydale's the first one.
Yes, Levydale.
I get confused depending which direction I'm driving from, which road comes up first. Essentially from the railroad tracks to Levydale. We have nobody signed up for the public hearing. Public hearing is officially open. Is there anybody present that would like to speak to this and did not have the opportunity to sign up? I'll leave the public hearing open for another couple seconds just in case. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak regarding the public hearing? This is no parking on Tompkins Street west of the railroad tracks to Levydale. Having nobody else present to speak for the public hearing, we'll call the public hearing officially closed, 7:04 p.m. Public comments, we have the opportunity for public comments. We ask that they are limited to 3 minutes in length, are addressed to council, and are to address issues that the city council has purview over. We ask that speakers please use the podium. Our first speaker, Richard Schreffler. Is Richard present? Hello. If you could use the podium up front, there's a microphone, and then that way we're able to all hear and record what your comments are.
Okay, I'm a current driver for Uber and Lyft. I would like to be able to have permission to park in the city limits, to pick up the city limits, because I've lived here for a long time, I feel that I have that right to be able to pick up in the city of Cortland, which is important to me. I feel that if I save somebody's life, it's worth me driving and pick up in the city limits. So that I'm asking for is that permission and have this possible for any Uber Lyft driver in the city of Cortland to pick up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, Dr. Mecca Nagel.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunities to speak. My name is Mecca Nagel. I live in the city of Cortland, and I thank my councilman, Carpenter, for allowing us to address the issue that I brought to your attention. And we're with the United Voices of Cortland. And this is a letter that's directed to our police chief and the police commission regarding a few issues. One of them is the issue of police awards, right? And we also brought it to the attention of Jesse Abbott. I brought a student also from SUNY Cortland to that meeting last Friday. So we appreciate what the city police does for residents here and keep safety in order. And we understand that awards ceremonies have to happen to boost morale, right? And that's a wonderful thing. And we appreciate, Jesse Abbott showed me his joint award, Lawman of the Year, where he did something very courageous, right? And de-escalated, diffused the situation, nobody got hurt, right? United Voices of Cortland was founded really with the mission to create a more welcoming community, right? And we worry that parts of the award ceremony really endorses a law and order philosophy that may be at odds with the community policing that the city has done for a number of years. And some of us at the meeting voiced that we thought that the students were treated, the college students were treated with professionalism and proper de-escalation techniques, when weekends come about, right? I'm going to have to come back to this issue in a little bit. But I also know that the college, there's town-gown relations. I probably will invite myself to the next meeting to share some of the students' perspectives. And we also have community members who are thinking twice about calling 911 because there was some not so fabulous interaction with police. So what we want to ask to go forward with something positive is to really focus these awards on rewarding officers for valor, for peace and de-escalation techniques used, and many cities around the US have really focused on de-escalation and really building robust community relations. Where also the community will report crime as it happens, as opposed to be mum because nobody wants to be hurt, including by officers, right? We are excited that the police force has taken such steps in EDPRT trainings, and we heard a mother talk about her emotionally disturbed son being treated with phenomenal respect this was actually the sheriff's office, as I learned from Officer Abbott. And so we know this work has saved lives. We know use of taser is down because police are trained and working with emotionally disturbed folks, right? What I've just learned from doing a listening session with students at the college is that they really would like the police officers to work with more respect. Some use the word that the police officers are out of control of ticketing students when they're holding a cup that's filled with water, and that there is actually a talk that by police officers to fulfill a quota, which goes against community policing as we understand it. And the students really, in their earnest sense, really ask you to focus on areas of concern, of robberies in certain areas, of multiple break-ins, and not being accosted when they're asking for pizza when they're standing in line to get their pizza, to show their fake ID, which they don't have on their body, right? And they're not buying a drink at that moment. Some students kind of jokingly tell me that it's difficult to graduate from the college without a city police ticket. Yeah? They've seen policing in other areas where they come from. Some of them have families with police officers, and they think our officers need to a whole lot more training and respect and working with the college population.
Mecca,
Yes.
we're limiting to 3 minutes, so I'll ask if you can please wrap it up.
I'm wrapped up, yes. But the only thing I ask is that you consider what I said, and we always, United Voices, our doors are open. We meet every third Monday of the month, and hopefully Mr. Carpenter can join us one of these times again as our liaison for police relations. We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Board reports, starting with the first board.
We had a board meeting mid-February, went well. A couple concerns were brought up regarding yard waste collection, blue bags, as well as sidewalk cleanup. Those were all addressed. We had one other concern come up that was addressed over the course of the month. Otherwise, things are going well in the first board.
Fourth board.
To begin with, again, as a reminder to people, you're going to be encountering many potholes, okay? I do know that the Department of Public Works, DPW, was out earlier in February with a cold patch filling potholes. But again, due to the weather that we've been having, freeze and thaw, many more potholes have been developed and will continue to be developed. And again, this is just something you have to watch, and sooner or later DPW will get around to them. Very quickly, last Wednesday I was out in Albany attending with our Director of Finance and our Chief of Police a conference on the legalization of cannabis, which will be happening here in the state sometime soon. It proved very fruitful to attend, because many of the things that just off the top of one's head that you want to think about, all of a sudden is up in front of you. Like listening to somebody from New York City saying that they think that in what they call the dispensary or the retail outlets that would sell the material, that they should also have smoke rooms allowed. And I'm thinking, well, okay, that works well in a major city with large public transportation. But are you advocating this for statewide? And how do you control something like that? So there's just so many questions yet that one gets the feel that the state's not wrapping their hands about. The one thing we did learn was throughout the state that this would be up to the counties. Unless you're in a municipality that's over 100,000 people, the population, if you have over 100,000 population, then the city can vote to either be in or out. Other than that, throughout the state, it's up to the counties. If the counties don't want to opt in to where growers aren't allowed, transportation as far as distribution, or again, the sale of it in stores, a county can opt out. Bottom line is, if a county opts in, then they get the money after what the state would take. It's not necessarily sure that a county would split it. So, you have a number of issues that were very interesting. I know the chief has many concerns, but all we can do is wait and watch and see what our state assembly, state senate, and the governor does. And that's it.
Thank you. Fifth ward.
All quiet in the fifth ward.
Sixth.
It's
Quiet in 6.
7th.
Just some concerns with the, actually numerous concerns with the traffic light at Pomeroy and Port Watson. I truthfully haven't had a chance to get a hold of Nick, but it is on the priority list this week. For those that you are aware of it, there's a lot of handicapped people in the town. And if you push the light, you push the button across, it doesn't stop the traffic going the other way. Two guys, we almost got hit twice, and I think they actually contacted Carolina's office to deal with it, because they're just not stopping pedestrians. Should be, get the crosswalk, traffic light should turn red both directions. We've got to address that, I'll be working on it. So other than that, everything else.
Thank you. 8th Ward.
Just two issues with the 8th Ward. Potholes always seem to be an ongoing thing once we get a quick thaw. And I'm sure DPW will be jumping on this once the weather breaks. And they've been pretty proactive in trying to fill these, even when we had some warm spells here the last couple of weeks. I also want to thank DPW for garbage pickup issue in our neighborhood. They were able to react pretty quickly, and were able to resolve it in a timely manner. So once again, I want to thank the DPW for jumping right on this problem. And that's all I have for the 8th Ward. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. The mayor's desk going to ask for an executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss a contractual matter. That means with council approval, adjourn into executive session for contractual matter. We do not anticipate action afterwards. Minutes from February 19 of 2019. Looking for one alteration before we get into it. Resolution number 38 on the first page, there were 8 ayes. I believe we had 6 present, so looking for one change to the minutes. And then with that alteration, do we have approval, motion to accept the minutes with that alteration? Carlos, second. John, any further discussion, potential alterations? Hearing none, all those in favor of filing the minutes with the adjustment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And a proclamation, St. Baldrick's Day, which will be coming up very soon. Whereas worldwide, a child is diagnosed every 3 minutes before they turn 20, and about 1 in 285 children in the United States will have cancer. And childhood cancer is the #1 cause of death by disease of children in the United States. And the St. Baldrick's Foundation currently funds more in childhood cancer research grants than any organization with the exception of the United States government. And enlisting the recognition and support of elected officials in the city of Cortland will help to raise awareness and move us closer to finding cures and better treatment options for kids battling this disease. Therefore, I, Brian Tobin, Mayor for the City of Cortland, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, March 20th as St. Baldrick's Day in the City of Cortland. And I urge all citizens to recognize the seriousness of childhood cancers and the meritorious work of the St. Baldrick's Foundation. And I also encourage people, if you want to participate, Tom Terwilliger is having an event, and we appreciate his leadership in this fight. And they've had this, is this his 3rd or 4th annual?
I would say it's
4th annual event, and we'll have several community members who are getting their heads shaved. Getting their heads shaved and soliciting for donations to fight childhood cancer. So anybody who is interested,
Why not look at you, Billy?
it's a very noteworthy cause.
They raise a lot of money for this, very good.
It's gone well, and efforts, all communities taking part in something like this, and the money adds up, and there's a lot more that can be done when we as society move forward together. Agenda item number 1, we have a discussion and a presentation regarding the potential for requiring rental properties to be tested for radon and requiring disclosure to tenants. So we've got a couple of representatives from the health department. Gentlemen, if you could introduce yourselves and want me to hit the lights?
Sure, that'd be great. everybody see that okay? Okay, perfect. All right, well, for starters, I would like to thank everybody for allowing us to come here to talk to you all today. My name's Derek Green. I'm with the Cortland County Health Department, Environmental Health Division. I'm here with one of my coworkers, Michael Ryan. He is also with the Cortland County Health Department, Environmental Health Division. And we're here to talk to you about something really important, and that's radon. Radon is a very serious issue here in this county. Cortland County actually has the highest level of radon in homes in the entire state. And it's also the #2 cause of lung cancer, second to smoking. If you are a smoker, you have a better chance of actually getting lung cancer. So it's something that we're definitely trying to keep in check. And hopefully this presentation will help give you more knowledge than you had before when you came in. Actually, I'm gonna take the microphone here with me because I gotta operate the presentation from here. So hopefully you can all see this. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, what is radon? Radon is an invisible, tasteless, and odorless gas that is found underground. It is formed from the breakdown of uranium in the soil, rock, and water. Radon enters a home through cracks in concrete, slabs and blocks, joints, loose-fitting pipes, exposed soil and water. The EPA and the U.S. Surgeon General urge all Americans to protect their health by testing their homes, schools, and other buildings for radon. So, how is radon formed? It's pretty simple, actually. Radon is formed from the radioactive decay of uranium. And so as the uranium breaks down, it turns into the element radium. And that radium starts to break down and eventually becomes radon gas. So Cortland County is very unique. We are affected by geology. So eons ago, we had the glaciers that moved through the area, and it dropped off this wonderful sediment. It's great for growing crops. We have some of the best crops probably in the state. We grow cabbages, other things, because of the soil we have. But there is a disadvantage to it. Cortland County has one of the largest soil source aquifers in the state, and that's also a result of the glaciers that went through. And here's a great shot. This is from Preble, New York. If you're up by the highway garage, what you can see in the distance is one hillside, and then the other one off to the other side is another hill. All that's in the middle of that's all glacial deposits. I love this shot, and it really exemplifies it really easily here. And the thing that we're worried about with soil is this is all well-drained soils. And when you have a well-drained soil, there's a lot of pore space. So there's a lot of room for radon gas to be stored. So the more bigger the pore size, the more radon gas you get stored. And that's why we have such a problem here in Cortland County. So how do we measure radon? Radon is measured in picocuries per liter of air. New York State has determined that a level of 4.0 picocuries per liter or greater is considered high. Here's a map of the state of New York, and you can see all the different counties in it. Cortland County is smack dab in the middle, and you can see it's really reddish in color, and it's showing that we have some of the highest levels of radon in the county. Here's some soils maps that were developed, and this all comes from soil data that was gathered from people testing their own homes. We do hand out free radon test kits for residents of Cortland County, and we do limit to 1 per family, but this is all generated from radon results that people have picked up from us. And the darker the brown colors are, the higher the levels, and they're way above the 4 picocuries per liter. As a matter of fact, those dark browns are ranging from anywhere from like 20 to 55 picocuries per liter, so that's very high. So what are the health impacts, and why should we be concerned? Based on Environmental Protection Agency, EPA estimates, lung cancer due to radon exposure claims about 21,000 of US lives annually. Radon, as I mentioned earlier, is the #1 cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. A smoker is also expected, or is exposed to radon, has an even higher risk of developing lung cancer. So what are the health impacts for Cortland County residents? Homes in Cortland County have the highest average basement and first floor readings in New York State. Cortland County has been designated as a high radon risk area by the EPA and the New York State Department of Health. And this part really scares me. The average basement screening radon level for Cortland County is 14.44 picocuries per liter. That's way over the 4 level. These charts here show a comparison of smokers versus non-smokers. So we're going to go to the very top where it says 20 picocuries per liter. So if you had that tested in your home and you smoke, and this is out of 1,000 people who smoked and were exposed to a level over a lifetime, if you had 20 picocuries per liter, about 260 people would get lung cancer. So to compare it down to the very bottom where it says 20 picocuries per liter, if you never smoked, 36 people would get lung cancer out of 1,000 people. So this is just showing that example that I just mentioned, so just bear with me. I'm going to go to the next slide. And we just recently attended the Cortland Counts Forum. This was some of the information that was put into their literature when we gave a presentation to them. And as you can see, lung and bronchial cancer incidence with rates with males and also females, we actually have the highest levels there as well. And you can see how we compare with upstate New York and New York State and then the national data. And to me, that's really staggering. When you go from 59.6 to 88.7 out of 100,000 people, that just is eye-opening. So what do we do? It's very simple. Get your home tested. Knowledge is power. Where are areas where radon can enter your home? It can enter through the bedrock, fractures in the bedrock. As I said, it's in the soil. It can go through your well. It can go through fittings in your basement, through cracks, through sumps. Even you can end up having it in your shower. Our radon test kits, this is an actual picture of the ones that we hand out to the residents here in the county. And again, they're totally free of charge. I encourage anybody to stop into our office that wants to get it tested. And again, it's one per family. So radon testing, this is the perfect time of year to be doing this. Everyone's windows are shut up. Everything's properly sealed. So winter is the optimum time for testing for radon. Radon tests should be placed in the lowest living places of your house. So if you spend most of your time in your basement, like more than 2 hours a day, that's where you're going to want to do your testing. Or if you're on the first floor and that's where you're spending most of your time, that's where you're going to want to have it done. So this poor guy just got his radon test. He got 10.2 picocuries per liter. So what do you do when you get a high rating, okay? So the thing is not to panic, all right? A radon mitigation system. It's a very effective way of dealing with radon in your home. And it's a very simple process, actually. It's perforated PVC pipe, and it's installed below the lowest level of the house. There's usually a membrane that goes down on the basement floor, and it prevents any of the radon gas from coming up through it. And the perforated PVC pipe goes to a T-junction, and that pipe goes through every level of the house, up through the ceiling. There's a fan on the very top, which runs constantly, and so instead of the radon moving up through all the levels of the home, it goes through that one pipe, and so that way we get the levels way below the 4 picocuries per liter. So you're probably asking yourself, what does this cost? It depends on what your home is like. If it's a newly existing home that's just being built, obviously it's a lot cheaper for pre-construction versus construction. So it can range anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. And Cortland County Division of Environmental Health has a list of licensed installers of radon mitigation systems available. And that's really important to consider because you don't want to hire a mitigator that doesn't know what they're doing. That's why you want to get one that is certified, okay? So that way you get the problem taken care of right away and don't have to have someone have to come in and fix it later. We do have a lot of helpful information back at the office. A lot of this comes from the US EPA. The one on the left is Building Radon Out. That is a really good information on how radon mitigation systems work and all the ins and outs. A Citizen's Guide to Radon is really good, and it basically goes everything that I'm covering tonight. So radon is a concern for Cortland County residents. Yep. And Mike Ryan will come up and talk to you a little bit about that today. Absolutely. There you go.
Is Bobby there? Beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You just hit the enter button too if you want to, or yeah, if you want me to advance the slides for it.
If you don't do slides, that'd be great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
He has more talent than I do.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
Hi, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Director of Environmental Health and the Public Health Engineer for Cortland County Health Department. And I just wanted to go over a little bit on the local level of the testing. I understand, I see the agenda there, you were talking about it in respect to rental. Cortland has actually a very, you're pretty far ahead of the game from a lot of communities, and you do have the rental law. And that is a good mechanism for a lot of things, and probably radon would fit into that, probably better than any other mechanism that sets in place right now. We don't have the ability to do it at the county, we don't really have the ability to do it at the state. The county's limited to really getting the kids out there and providing information and outreach such as this. The state hasn't taken up any, basically any regulations or litigation, or not litigation, but just legislation or rules on it. So just on a local level, there were 1,227 houses tested between the period of 1986 and now. And we keep data on all these, and look at some of the stats here. The average results is 15.3, which is higher than the county's rating. The highest rating, and this is remarkably high, 125.3 picocuries per liter. Now compare that to over 4 was thought to be problematic, and you saw some of the data based on lung cancer and radon. By the way, with lung cancer and radon, if you smoke and you have radon, it's not just twice as much. It's 10 times as much. I didn't know if you guys picked up those numbers, but you take a look at somebody who smokes and has radon, that's a very, very deadly combination because it's not just twice as much, it's logarithmic. And there's reasons for that, probably in the nature of the gas itself. I'll get into it in a minute. But the breakdown in Cortland, homes less than 4, where it's thought to be all right, is 22%. Homes between 4 and 20, which is getting up in the more dangerous zone, 53%. And then higher than 20 picocuries per liter, 301 houses are about 24.5, 25%. So those are, this is for basement readings, and then we can get the first floor readings next. A little bit lower on the first floor. Reason for that, radon is kind of an unusual gas. It's a pure element. It is the heaviest gas known. It's probably 7 times the density of normal air. So where you'll see radon, you see it in the lower levels. So that's why the basements, you'll always see it higher in the basements than the first floor. But if you're spending a lot of time in the basement, that's the number you want to pay attention to. Otherwise, you can kind of focus on this number. Again, that's a bit lower, 7 picocuries per liter. And that's just a number of, a picocurie per liter is just a number of how many disintegrations happen per minute. It's based on the science of nuclear. Homes tested, 522 homes tested, highest 76.7. That's first floor, that's pretty high. Less than 4, 247 or 47%. Greater than or equal to 4, but less than 20 is 45%, and homes equal to or greater than 20 is about 7% or 40 homes. So it's a significant amount of radon, and again, as Derek mentioned, it is the highest in New York State. So if you're thinking, I mean, what we do as a county is like we're looking at the whole radon program. We're trying to get kits out to everybody, to single family home unit owners. We're also trying to look at the possibility of people who rent. Rental is kind of a different game, and you don't have the same control you do as if you're a homeowner. So Cortland was kind of interested in seeing, is that something we wish to address, and we're just going to try to reach out, and any guys, if you need help or want to talk with us or anything, we're more than willing to work with you on that. It'll be your choice, but I guess when you're talking about any kind of rules and stuff, you're talking about policy. And one is the radon certification. As Derek mentioned, there's a number of certified mitigators out there. You want to get somebody who is certified, and it's kind of a complex thing to do right. And the last thing you want is to have somebody mitigate your house and have it not mitigated and you think you're all right. So that's a really important one. We keep a list of certified contractors out there for anybody who is doing that kind of thing. Radon in real estate transaction. There's been a new law in New York State requiring the homeowners to disclose when they're selling, or property owners to disclose upon sale of properties. Known radon effects, I'll get into that in a minute. Radon in rental housing. Again, you have a high percentage of rental housing, not only in Cortland, but in the United States. So you have a very high percentage of people out there who may be impacted by this. And then lastly, radon control in new construction, such as codes. It's kind of interesting that you have codes in place for most of the hazards. You know, obviously we need electricity, we need heat, but there are codes to make sure that not just anybody goes in and wires your house. And no, not just, there's gas codes, there's sewer codes. These are all intended to save lives, but you haven't seen that with radon yet. They have not yet caught up to that area. And as you can see, it's got quite a deadly reputation. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, but it will kill you. Again, New York State specific laws, the radon disclosure law requires sellers to disclose known radon levels. That's known. So I think a lot of people choose not to know when they're selling their house. I mean, it's kind of like the lead hazards. If you know about it, you have to disclose it. So I think people tend not to know it. So it's not as good as it may seem. It seems like it's a great thing, and it is good, but if you don't know it, then you're not required to disclose it. Did you have a question? Okay. I'm sorry. And then daycare centers, that's specifically in that portion of the law. A lot of things that New York State law does not do that are very important when you're considering policy. There's no law requiring radon resistance in new construction. And that is simply the best time to do it. If it was in the codes, then it would be a lot easier when houses are built to get that in there. That's the time to put it in, when it's the cheapest overall to do. State certification process for radon mitigation. That's for people putting in systems and radon proofing an existing house or a new house. Certification is required in some states, not New York. Penalty provisions for misrepresenting the radon readings. Obviously, if you're going to have radon readings required, they have to be accurate and valid, and there's no penalty in place to make sure people aren't just lying on that. Public education awareness, the state per se does not have that, although they do through the health departments. We're getting out there based on that, and that's kind of what we're doing here today. Radon testing in public schools is not required, and landlords disclosing to radon levels to tenants is not required in New York State. There are some states that do have it. Probably Maine is the most notable example. I think there's only 3 or 4 states that have anything in place in terms of mitigation or into notification. Probably the best law is Maine has a state law requiring landlords to notify their tenants of the radon levels, to measure with a certified measure, you know, and then notify their tenants of that, and then at least the tenants are aware of what they have. At one time when they first started out, it was a law that said they will test and mitigate it if they find it. There was a lot of pushback on that, and they finally, actually one group, of course, the renters didn't want to have any law in there, so they said we don't want to test or mitigate. And the other side said, well, you don't have to mitigate, but you're at least going to test. People have the right to know. And so that's kind of how it went into effect. That was 2014, I believe. The only other litigation, I keep saying litigation, I must be stuck in the law zone today. But the only other legislation out there that I know is the radon guide for EPA HUD housing. That is federal law for people who are impacted by HUD. So I guess we're invited here to specifically talk about Cortland. And just to kind of summarize some of the points that I should be making. A policy for the city of Cortland would protect tenants from being exposed to radon, which is a known cause of lung cancer. Number 2 behind smoking, number 1 if you're not a smoker. And there are more U.S. households that are headed by renters than at any point since '65. In the U.S., that's rated 37% are renters, over 1/3, while housing units. In Cortland, renter-occupied housing units are 52%, so more than half, and owner-occupied are 47.7%. Obviously, we would care about both of those entities. If you were to want to implement something in Cortland, I've gone through and reviewed your rental laws, and I think it's a pretty solid workhorse. I think it was very well constructed, well thought out, and if you're going to do something with radon, that was probably what you'd be targeting, because you've got enforcement built into that, you've got notification of other things built into that, you've got everything covered in that you would need to sort of add this into it. And the other thing is that these, you've got to define who has the authority to oversee it, and that's the code enforcement officer. And typically that's where you would want it, because those are the people who go in, I think you go every 3 years in Cortland to get the permit renewed, and they're the most familiar people. And like I say, code officers look for electrical connections, they look for gas, they look for other safety concerns. So if you're going to do it, that would probably be a natural match. And the other thing I'd like to say is more than just rentals. I mean, we are giving kits out. It's worth doing. You won't know if you have radon unless you test for radon. And to know about it is very valuable, because these systems are not really, when you compare it to the idea of possibly getting lung cancer, they're not very expensive at all. You know, I've had one put in several houses now, and they're really, personally speaking, they're worth every penny of it. But we would like to see things move up to where there's more and more control over it, such as we want to see mitigators regulated, we want to see measuring people regulated, so that we know that people are getting what they think they're getting. I would like to just open it up for, oh no, I got more stuff to say. I thought I was done there. But again, I think I said all this. You've got periodic testing, mitigation of the elevated levels, certified professionals, can't say enough about it, and just notification of tenants. I think that's probably the best place to start. If you were to do it here in Cortland, you'd be the first municipality in New York State doing that. And I don't think that anybody, including Maine, was ready to go to the mitigation phase yet, because there's just such pushback, and there's not enough things known as far as what you're going to find out there. I think that you're going to see different situations in residential houses in terms of accumulating radon than you are in rental properties. It's just going to be different areas that are impacted. But we would, I think a lot of people will feel that notification is something that should happen. Anywhere we would recommend it. And I guess now I can open it up to questions, because I don't have anything else I have to tell you.
I'd like to bring up one point too. If anybody wants to pick up a free radon test kit, they can stop at the county office building. We're on the first floor on 60 Central Avenue, room 120. And again, I'm Derek Green. My other counterpart that I work with Healthy Neighborhoods, Elizabeth Geeson, she's a public health educator. She can actually go into your home and actually do the test for you. That's a good thing too, the Healthy Neighborhoods do. They also give away some really neat free things like fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, things of that nature. That's her information there, and she's located in the same building as us.
It doesn't mean you get to smoke if you don't have radon either. So, they told me I shouldn't be telling people that. Are there any questions from,
Oh, I'm sorry.
am I allowed to take questions, Mayor?
Counsel, you made a point of saying that this individual will come in and take the readings. Now, are you saying that we can obtain these readings the same day, or are you saying that
No,
he's gonna drop the kid off
Yeah,
and pick it up later?
that's a great question. I'm gonna use the
It's
microphone.
usually over a multi-day period. It's a charcoal pad. It picks up the radon on the year over a specified period of time. And
Yeah.
it'll flat.
The way,
We have some landlords that are very proactive in helping, let's say, stay on the uppity up. Then we have some that will probably take this kid, set it outside
So
the
the
night
picking
before.
too, yeah, so that's why you really want to have the certified testers in there too. Somebody who's got something in the game, some skin in the game that
Well,
they
yeah,
can't be doing that.
you gotta make sure that everybody's gonna stay honest. And how do you plan on policing that?
Question is,
There's a
so
lot of
would you
unanswered
plan
questions.
It's a good question. I think you certainly have things built in. It's like any lock, you can't always be there when it's broken, but there has to be penalties if they are broken. And I guess the one thing you have is that you're going in every 3 years. If you were to do it under your existing law, you are going in every 3 years if you had a suspect, or if a tenant got a kit and found it was a different reading than the landlord was reporting, and that would be a reason that would tip you off that, hey, somebody's not being on the up and up here. And somebody you suspect, you probably could get in there and get it tested because you have that right to go and enter the premises, and you're issuing a permit every 3 years. And in order to have that renewed and not revoked, people have to kind of cooperate with it. So that would be kind of the area you'd be looking at. I don't think anybody's gonna dress like a bush. And,
Smell like a bush.
yeah, and stand outside the house, but you can't tell without testing for it anyway, so you really gotta get in there and do the test.
Yeah.
just to do a little follow-up too, you were asking how long those tests usually take. You want to leave it open for 2 to 3 days. That's important to know. And once the 2 to 3 days are over, you have it resealed. There's directions in the test kit. It's very simple, and you mail it right in the package it comes in. And you want to ship it out right away because the company that does the testing, RTCA, they have to get the results within 10 days. If they don't get the results back in 10 days, it's an invalid test, and you have to go back from scratch. Yes?
How often, does the results ever change? So for instance, if you came in under the level, would you ever need to retest your house, or would it be, you're good for the long term?
That's an awesome question, actually. No, that's really, really good. It's not going to change if you don't do anything to your home, all right? So you're still going to get the same test, more than likely. When you put a mitigation system in, you're going to retest it to make sure that you are below the 4 picocures per liter. Matter of fact, they get it down pretty close to 0, which is really cool. And what I recommend anybody to do, once they have that installed, it's always good to have that system inspected once every 5 years by the certified mitigator. When they do that, that's another good time to have another retest done. So I would say probably once every 5 years, once a system's been installed.
But if there's no need for a system and you don't change your house, you don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a good level, I wouldn't want to do it again. Yeah.
I might, but I'm an engineer. I like to measure everything twice.
Thank you.
My neighbor's currently having this done right now as you gentlemen are speaking tonight. I'm kind of curious to see how he's gonna make out.
Yeah, it's really good. It was really cool. We did a presentation last month in McGraw, and a gentleman picked up a radon test kit for me, and his levels were like 26 picocuries per liter. And he called me, got a certified mitigators list, and he had a mitigation system put in, and the levels are down. So he was very thankful to have it done. So it's something that can be really taken care of. And you had a question too? Oh, sorry.
Not really a question, just more concerns about, to me, we're targeting the rental properties again. There's gotta be a lot more that's gotta be targeted. You guys' feelings are, it's a big thing. I know it's concerning data,
Mm-hmm.
but why not the hospital? Why not the schools? Where are you gonna draw the line on 1 family, 2 family, 4 family, 6 family, 8 family, 12 family? You're talking big numbers here to put this stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd want to be looking to be consistent with what you're already controlling with rentals now in the same form and fashion, so that you're not marking one route and another. I think that the state institutions should be monitored by the state. I think that is their responsibility. In terms of what you'd be doing here, that's probably the reason why people didn't say you had to go automatically to mitigation. Because there's more than one way to skin a cat. But the notification portion, I guess I wouldn't agree there. I think that people would have a right to know if they have a building which could be causing them lung cancer. It's a known public hazard. I wouldn't say we'd be targeting as much as requiring information to be out there in a fair fashion. But that's my
I just
opinion.
feel that, personally, just what little, I know about it and dealt with it. It's just, we're targeting just a group of individuals rather than the whole picture, I feel, the way, what you're presenting.
Well, that would be if you wanted to bring it into your rental law, which I don't think it's a bad idea to do that. But I also want to reiterate that we're there to get kids out to people who are homeowners too. I think the president of the Board of Health was very surprised to have a 14 or an 18. He's like, oh my God, I never knew that. He's one of those healthy guys, out there. And it's just something you don't know, you don't see, you don't have any way of seeing it unless you test it. So why not, you can't tell a single family house owner what to do as far as testing in their own home.
Well, that maybe needs to be
That's
more
the law,
marching.
you can't
You're gonna tell
cross
somebody
the
that
line.
owns a rental property what to do,
Yeah,
what I mean? So
but they're serving a population which can't protect themselves. That would be the same thing, just like with ladders and like that. That's, I understand that there are gonna be two sides to the issue, and there are people on both sides of it. From the
I'm
health
just thinking,
department,
and dollar wise too, it's huge. We have an apartment house, it's got 80 units in it, we put the rate on it,
right?
and it's very expensive. And I'm just worried about policing it, who's gonna monitor it, the code office right now is overwhelmed. And citations and just, let's make another law that I'm not gonna enforce, it's just, I don't see it happening.
Well, laws need enforcement, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how well the rental law is being enforced now. It just seemed like it had all the bells and whistles that you would need to have an effective
But, in the
piece of litigation, but it's certainly a discussion that you may wish to have within the community. We are not looking to tell you what to do here. We're looking to give you information.
No, I'm not insinuating that,
And
but
what's out there. And it's pretty significant numbers if you look at how much radon we've got in Cortland. It's not like you live in a place that doesn't have it. There's states that you wouldn't even consider this, but Cortland's got the highest radon levels occurring in New York State. So it is an issue to us locally. So we want to underscore that and get that out there into public information because it hasn't been talked about a lot. And we feel it's our duty to talk about that and see what, people have the right to know what they're dealing with.
I don't know about residential building, but I do know commercial, we've done a few properties, a few projects in the last few years, they required us to have it put in the commercial properties or they were gonna sign a lease.
You're talking the mitigation system?
Yep.
That's excellent. I'm really glad they did that. I mean, that, to me, is being proactive. And, and that's saving lives. And that's what we're really here about, is saving lives.
But I have no problem with it on new construction stuff, it's
Yeah.
very reasonable.
It's cheaper. Yeah.
I just don't foresee it happening with a lot of the rentals that people are already strapped with cash here. We'll figure it out.
If you had a 20 or 50, you'd want to know it, I think. Well, I want to die. Because I didn't know. You said one question, you had one?
Yeah. The cost, you said between 1,000 and 5,000 on the board. Now, would that be covered under homeowners insurance?
I do not believe so.
No, unfortunately, I don't think that is the case.
No. Ours was not when we did ours.
I was just curious, okay, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you very much for the privilege of doing this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So further thoughts from council? Troy, you've got a couple of thoughts on that.
We need a lot more than tonight.
Let's stick around for a minute.
I have no problem with it, you know, I understand, I've dealt with it, and I deal with it now, and it's just, I'm just going back to the fact that we're just throwing everything back to the realm, you know, this, the landlords again here, and just this one item, I think we need to figure out other ways, you know, what are you gonna do about Mr. Yeaman on, you know, Crescent Commons down there? I mean, it'd be huge for him now, the project just got done. You gotta draw the line somewhere.
Wife and I went through a.
We don't need that to jail, because the roof leaks, so it's all betting on anyway.
Oh, there's nobody in there.
There's nobody in there.
But we purchased our home, the new one, 3 years ago, and there was testing, and that was part of the sale agreement. And as a homeowner, we can affect that leverage. We can say, okay, we want a radon mitigation system, and are we going to put that in, or is that going to be required? And then a renter, I see the point. A renter doesn't have the opportunity to say, we want this, or we need this, or even knowing if they're at risk because of whether or not there are levels in the dwelling unit. Your statistics said 52%, but I've seen numbers that put our dwelling units that are rentals as opposed to owner occupied higher, closer to 60%. So we're talking a significant portion of our population. And owner occupied, if people, when you're buying a home, do the right thing, ask the question, have the testing done, and have the testing done in your home periodically. But the renter doesn't have the opportunity to do that or even know.
I think most banks now are requiring to have it tested anyway. I mean, a lot of them, I shouldn't say most, I do.
As a owner, but not
Mayor,
for renters.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Looking at this, especially concerning the renters, do you have any numbers of how long it might take, how many years of living in a building, a house that adds a high radon reading? How many years it might take for that to start to affect a person or
I do
lead
not.
to the causes?
I don't. Cancer is usually a long-term sort of a thing, and it goes in, you know, it's one of those mutagenic things, you know.
Yeah.
One thing has to trigger, and sometimes, you know, it's 20, 30, 40 years later, so it's very difficult to tell.
Because again, too, you know, again, as Troy brings up, especially in an area where you have such a high number of rental apartments, you know, what is the transient number? How long are people living there? Just a year, 2 years, moving out of the area, you know?
Yeah, it
So
wouldn't
if
be
you're only
required
in
for
a
hotels
rental
or
unit
motels.
for a year to 5 years,
Right. Transient, like facilities, I can see you saying, well, you know, if it's a hotel or a motel, how long is somebody gonna stay in that facility? You know, if it's a bed and breakfast, they're not gonna be there,
well,
Like
even
for-
many of the
like for a
rental,
long time,
again,
but-
too,
and if you're living a place, I think that's at
A
risk.
good percentage of our rental units are student housing, and I'm not saying I don't want to protect the students, but again, too, they're transient. They're not,
Yeah.
they're only in there basically 7 months of the year.
Yeah, it's a long time exposure. That's the thing. You could be living at a place maybe 10 to 20 years, and you could potentially get, you know, lung cancer over that period of time. So, I mean, that's the important thing. You test your home, and you nip it in the bud.
I know,
yeah.
I'll be by tomorrow to get a kit, because, you know.
Oh, please do.
I live in a 100-year-old home that, even though I've done the
It's all going
foundation.
up to the walls.
Yeah, now, I still got a lot of my foundation, which is old field stuff, which isn't,
Yeah, fortunately, it's probably not airtight, so that's probably a good thing.
So, again, the agenda item is about testing for radon and requiring disclosure. So it's not about requiring installation. It's about testing and then better informing potential tenants. So if there's consensus in terms of investigation, we can work with Corporation Counsel. If there's a couple people on council that would like to do further research. But I would encourage council to continue the discussion about testing and disclosures. So the discs, I actually have one at home, and it's a simple little disc. And you're giving them out, what you said, one per family. Typically, on the open market, do you know what a test unit costs?
That's a great question. They usually average around $10 to $15. You can pick them up at any hardware store, Lowe's, Walmart. They're pretty easy to get, but we get these right directly through state grants, and we're glad to happily give them to residents here in the county. Free of charge?
And that's how we track the data too, so it's kind of good, that's how we keep track of what's going on in your city and in your county.
And another good thing about it too is we have the opportunity to update our radon maps. So as long as we continue to get the data in, we can get a better feel of how radon is distributed throughout the county.
Further questions, discussion?
Oh, yeah, I plan on picking up a kid. I'm kinda curious now.
Did you bring any?
Actually, I have some outside. I could bring some up if anybody wanted some. There's some paperwork you gotta fill, it's a simple sheet. And I would gladly hand you one. Okay?
We can promise you'll be down tomorrow first thing. Because we gotta have that paperwork. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and we can go back, let everybody think about it, talk it over amongst yourselves, and then the next meeting or meeting after, continue the discussion about how best to do this in an effective, how to do it effectually. So Troy, your point's taken, we want to make sure that we're able to do it, and also that we're able to do it without a financial. Agenda items number 2 and 3, point of information for attendees. We're talking about program income, and this is community development block grant program income, and it's money that is dedicated to go back to the state unless we have a required and an acceptable use locally. And we've got 2 things that we're very interested in. Number 2, resolution to commit $20,000 in community development block grant program income for the demolition of 16 Harmon Ave in the city of Cortland, subject to approval by the New York State Office of Community Renewal. Motion to consider, Carlos Ferrer, second, John Bennett, discussion.
I just had one question. I think we were looking at the quotes for demolition on the property, and it looked like it was over the allocated funding that we're talking about here.
They both.
They both were, yeah. Is there a plan for filling that gap?
I would recommend that we go and put out for a bid. So we needed to take a couple of steps. I think what we need to do is go back and put out an RFP for proposal, because I'm not sure that all the information was contained. And if somebody knows somebody else, then maybe prices might change.
Chief Knickerbocker put out for updated proposals. So hopefully we can get the approval for this, so $20,000 will be there, and any of the other difference will have to come out of contingency or somewhere. It's definitely gonna be probably more, especially with, there's asbestos in the area, so we probably have to find a few $1,000s more to cover the cost.
Did that go to auction?
They didn't go to auction, I would recommend for it to go to auction.
You don't want somebody to try to
I
fix
took
it.
you over and I showed you the.
Yeah, I've been
buildings.
through it. It was a nice house when John had it.
Absolutely.
40 years ago.
No, John is not. He was moved up on him.
So my recommendation is the resolution as is, but council, you do have the opportunity to make adjustments if you'd like.
This is item 2, correct?
Correct. Item number 2.
What I'd like to do is save some of the money from item 3 and see how item 2 shakes out before we commit item 3.
Well, we wanna vote on number 2 before we get to 3.
Well, you kind of put the cart before the horse.
Just
You're only
what
giving
do we
us,
do when we tear the house
you're only
down?
giving us 20,000, then you're taking it all after that.
All right, so let me clarify, the numbers are numbers that have been discussed, and number 3, not to get ahead of ourselves, but that's program income, and that was tied into, I believe, the loan to KIC that was bought by BDC IDA. And there is a little bit more in the pot. There's more money, and we are trying to determine what the final total will be. My recommendation in terms of number 2 is to hold it as is, and we advertise and see if we have bids that come in lower. If you want to commit more, we can commit more, but I wouldn't be surprised if the bids are pretty close to what you commit. Just saying. I'm not sure if you make it 5, that we'll get bids coming for 5, but. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 3, resolution to commit additional community development block grant program income, $123,600 to the rehabilitation of the pool house at Wickwire Pool for the purpose of removing architectural barriers subject to approval by the New York State Office of Community Renewal. Motion to consider. Cap McCarthy, second. Bill, discussion.
Now, is this gonna use up all the money at this point?
No.
All right, well, that's why you ask questions.
But you can't answer 3 yet before we get through 2.
Very expensive house.
Pool house.
Maybe they won't use the pool.
I'll tell you, the
Well,
splash
down there
pad is
the other
pretty
day.
cool. Between the splash pad and the pool, I think we're gonna get a fair amount of use of it. All right, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, so maybe I should have further discussed. We will have an agenda item on the March 19th council meeting. And basically, between now and then, Rich Cunningham at Toma Development is working with us to identify what final numbers are. So program income, think of it as reimbursables coming back to the city. So we'll have a much clearer idea March 19th, what our final totals are. And the potential for revisiting agenda item number 2 is out there. But we also have a number of curb cuts for handicap accessibility, sidewalks, that we are able to commit money towards. And we've had discussions, and it's, I'm trying to remember the list, potentially up as many as 27 curb cuts that we might be able to get done. So in terms of program income, community needs, we're hitting a lot of bases with this. So, yeah, if you're able to hold off till the 19th, if we need to, we might be able to adjust. Agenda item number 4, resolution to accept, recognize, appropriate the following donations to Youth Bureau. Pat O'Mara giving some money for park benches in Yeaman Park. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion.
That's very good. That's great. Thank you for the donation.
Excellent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 5, resolution to declare the items listed below as surplus inventory. We have 4 items: a video rack system, an Almo color monitor, Sony videographic printer, and a Navco time-lapse recorders. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. John Bennett, discussion.
Elmo colored monitor.
I don't think it says the Almo sign.
So the idea is try to sell these items?
Go through Auctions International, and proceeds to be reappropriated from the police department back to special investigations, line item A 3120 50.5416.04. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then the next agenda item, the same items, resolution to approve the sale of the items through Auctions International, with the proceeds being appropriated to the city police budget for the purchase of new equipment. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Tom Michaels, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 7, resolution to approve the appointment of Brett Barnes to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term, commencing ASAP, assuming there's approval. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion.
Brett is somebody that grew up in the city of Cortland, just up the street from where I live, left the community and has come back and wants to be involved.
That's good.
Is, for those who've been in the city for a while, they know his mother is a retired police officer and
Yeah.
city police officer, and his father retired as state trooper.
That's right.
I love it when people move away and then they get older and wiser and move back. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 8, resolution to appoint Robert Ray, the city zoning officer, as the city's fair housing officer. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Carlos Ferrer, discussion. And we have used an employee at Toma, however, the state has declared that we can no longer utilize somebody who is not a city employee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 9, resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a 2018 environmental restoration program grant contract, DEC 01-C000770GG 33540 with the New York State DEC to provide $115,000 in funding toward the restoration of Noss Industrial Park. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. John Bennett, discussion.
Does this look like something, little discussions we had that Chris thinks this people can do a lot of work with? Time comes.
The paving in terms of the addition of the road, but this is basically accepting the money from the DEC and moving forward with the project that has been sitting out for a little bit.
Don't we have water and sewer running out there already? To a certain point?
I think to a certain point, don't.
I think we did that back when, Mayor Gallagher was mayor.
A certain person in the back is shaking his head, yes.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. My memory serves me right.
You don't have radon on.
Yeah. I'll spend more than 2 hours in my basement.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 10. Resolution to establish date, time, and place to conduct a public hearing on the adoption of local law to potentially abolish all previous local laws, ordinances, and resolutions pertaining to taxi cabs, taxi cab drivers, and taxi cab companies operating within the boundaries of the city of Cortland. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Carlos Ferrer, discussion. So,
Elaborate on this?
yes, this came about with the proliferation of ride sharing, Uber and Lyft. And we've attempted, and we are working on local law, but we've attempted to regulate Uber and Lyft similar to how we regulate cab companies, with the idea of making sure there is a level playing field so that there's not a competitive advantage for one type of business versus the other. However, New York state law, which supersedes what we have tried to do, does not allow us to regulate Uber and Lyft, those types of companies. So we cannot do with them what we would like to hold them to the same standard as taxi cabs. So would it be council's pleasure to either completely eliminate or to minimize the regulations that we have on cabs, try to create a level playing field? So when we talk about cabs, we currently require registration for drivers, the vehicles, and we also regulate the price structure if you pick up and drop off in the city, and also there's a discount for seniors. So So the price structure with regards to pickup and drop off in the city, and then registering the vehicles and the drivers as registering as well.
But you're saying we can't do it with Uber?
Correct.
They have fought, Uber and Lyft have fought it nationwide.
I think there's a demand for them to be here, but it's gotta be equal.
Well,
Basically, we have to let them do what they want to do.
The state requires any Liberty driver at the cab to be registered as a Liberty driver, correct? I believe so. And I used to drive in New York City, and I had to have a chauffeur's license with a Liberty, Liberty endorsement. And it was regulated by the Taxi and Limousine Commission in New York City. I don't know what outside of New York City, if there's a commission on that, but I know it still requires
Must be
the
the
license.
yeah.
Right, so they have to be registered that way for them to pick up. But Uber and Lyft, no, because it's rideshare.
So the question boils down to, do we want to continue to regulate taxi cab companies, and if so, in what manner? Because if we're saying, okay, you can only charge $5 for a ride in the city of Cortland for a taxi cab company, but rideshare is going to do something different, and they can price differently. And we are requiring taxi cabs and drivers to come in, have their vehicles inspected for safety, both vehicle safety and health in terms of people coming in and going out of the vehicles. We can't do that with Uber and Lyft. The drivers, we want to be able to check, make sure the license is good and there's no issues or concerns in terms of drivers. But we can't do that with rideshare.
Rick, what do you think? Think you gotta look into it a little bit before we make a decision? I don't know, it sounds like there's not a lot to look into, but.
There is not.
I don't see why we could.
We have looked into it, and I've worked with Deputy Chief Sandy, who does the taxi cabs now. The difference between Carlos, the New York City example, is that the New York State law limits those cities with less than 100,000 into not being able to regulate Uber and Lyft. New York City, Albany, Syracuse, they can, and they can make the playing field level. So one of the thoughts we had, and why we're sort of, I certainly am encouraging you to consider eliminating all of that right now, is to take a look now over a period of time and see if there's a sort of a maturation of the Uber Lyft laws, and see what the real problems and complaints we're receiving for the taxi cabs, and revisit this maybe in a year or at the end of the year to see what the result has been as a result of us deregulating the taxi cab and sort of getting a playing field that's even. That certainly is my advice. It's very difficult to reduce these regulations and do it properly without sort of seeing the full picture with it. So that would be our preference, I think, and take another look at it down the road and see where those regulations need to be, if they need to be. If the market takes care of it, great. You know, that's, you know, if it's a lousy cab or a lousy Uber and they don't use them again, the market just succeeds. You know, we still have all of our vehicle and traffic laws. That's not going away. You know, if they have bad tires, bad mufflers, bad things that the police officers will stop them for anyway, let's do that. These are simply sort of internal regulations. The amount of money we receive in registration fees is not significant. So we have, you know, 5 or 6 cab companies. So I don't know that it's not really a monetary decision, but we really need to look at it as it's even, not sort of uneven, which it would be if we kept the regulations up. So that's just our point of view and our sort of research.
How are we gonna know if they're carrying the proper insurance and the registration's current?
Well, if they're stopped and they don't, then they get a ticket. Just like you and me.
Yeah.
Supposedly, when somebody applies, contacts Uber and Lyft, supposedly Uber and Lyft thoroughly goes through the vetting process of anybody that wants to be a driver. But they do not release any of that information to any municipality
are simply asking for a date to be considered. I've prepared the local law already, so I'm requesting March 19th for that local law and put it up, see what the community has to say, and see if they have some different ideas than some of the things that we're thinking before we pass it. So it's really, we're looking into April before it's passed one way or another, so you've got plenty of time to think about it.
So currently, there shouldn't be any Lyft or Uber drivers picking up in the city.
Under our laws, yes, but we can't enforce them because the state of New York has said we can't. So
I want to make sure.
we've indicated to the police office, I know Deputy Chief Sandy has, I haven't, Deputy Chief Sandy has, is that you have to back off on that particular registration. And we're sort of backing off a little bit on the registrations and permitting right now, the taxi cabs, until we sort this out. It's easier to collect later than give back, so that's the preference. So it's really in your ballpark for the next 45 days.
Abolish it for a while, like you say, see what happens.
Yeah, I think
it's our only option.
I do too. I think our hands are tied a little bit with the state legislation.
Well, I was never comfortable. That was one of the first things 8 years ago. I said, why are we dictating the price? It wasn't my fault, it's the city.
Should be market. Should be the market of that.
So, public hearing,
Yes.
yep, March 19th, 7 PM, right here. And we did run it as a resolution, not sure we needed to, but I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then, agenda item number 11, it's got my name, but Troy, you've talked most about this, and the roofing fees was an area that you had recommended for some changes. We talked about this and wanted to bring it back to see if there's further discussion. We want to move forward with changes to roofing fees, and then if there's anything else council would like to consider.
I was fine with the way it was presented. Chief, think about it, there's nothing that we had any time, but.
He's okay with it too.
Okay, the only concern I had was if somebody had a signed contract, they could bring in, you know, to waiver that, and from here, and we can run out. I think it was fair, and it's still affordable for Stratford.
So with support from council, we'll look at putting together for a, oh gosh, is that in the charter? Do we need a local law, or can we change the fees by resolution?
A resolution, what you will be doing is, I have the other fees that you need to approve annually. What I'll do is prepare a booklet, including the changes that are in the housing part of it, your suggestions, Alderman Beckwith, and put that together in a package and present it to you as approval of all fees. And I'll try to get it done by the 19th. I've got most of it completed. It's in a bit of a rocky form because it comes from a variety of departments, so we just need to make it look a little more.
Are you going to be able to have it by the 19th, or do you need
I
more
think the
time?
19th is not, that should be fine.
Okay.
Very good. Update on the DRI. Matt Cook has been very busy working on paperwork. Magic behind the scenes. So there's, on the city's end, 4 projects. I believe information was included. Design and construct Main Street improvements, design and build a pocket park, select design and construct the Crown City Artworks public art installations, and then number 4, design and construction regarding public Wi-Fi, and also broadband access to structures along Main Street. So the paperwork continues to move forward. We did have a preliminary meeting with some of the property and business owners from Main Street to talk about seasonal decorations. And the consensus amongst the attendees was that until there's more discussion regarding the streetscape, the final design, there's hesitation to start to commit to something. So we're talking about the Basically, are we doing lights in the trees, are we hanging things from street poles, street lamps? And the consensus was hold off, wait, and make sure that it fits in well with the streetscape. So, going forward, I know that last year there was a lot of consternation with some people in the community about Main Street and seasonal decorations, but we are not going to have an answer now. We are going to continue to have a discussion, and we will have a talk before we get to the holiday season about what we are doing for this holiday season, and if it is a permanent decision, or if it makes more sense, get farther along and make sure that we have something that fits in well with the general streetscape, so it looks cohesive. So fingers crossed that we continue to move along in a timely manner. No reason to suspect that we won't. And we will come back to talking about the decorations on Main Street, and I believe we should have that conversation with council probably August, September, so that we have plenty of time to figure things out before November.
No later than August. You're gonna plan any good stuff.
Troy, thank you for volunteering to chair the committee. August sounds good. We'll have the discussion, and we'll make sure that we're squared
I
away.
do have somebody who wants to be on it though. You probably know.
Excellent. Task force, I do not have any updates, and I'm going to defer that at the next meeting to somebody from council to pick up in terms of those discussions. So that goes through the formal agenda. The last thing that we wanted to discuss, well, council needs to have an executive session regarding a contractual matter. So I'll ask if we can adjourn to executive session. We have a motion to John Bennett, second, Bill Carpenter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We do not anticipate action when we come out. We'll see everybody shortly.
Mr. Mayor, you need to invite certain persons on the record into the executive session that aren't usually in the meeting.
I would like to officially invite Chief Catalano and do I need to name or?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Stringer.
Real. He just robbed right there in front of the police. You guys' job's easy here in Cortland. All you have to do is just walk on the streets, and you guys have like so a plethora of things to write about.
Imagine if you're in Florida.
Yeah, well, maybe we're.
What? No, it probably doesn't happen there because they all come up here to do it. Yeah, that's incredible.
No, everybody's